Thank you, Sukanya. So, good morning, all. So, I think today we have a less number of participants. Yesterday we have 110, and today we have less number of participants. It's okay. Those who are interested is here, I think. So, yeah, so from the participants list, as an organizer, when we have seen that we understood a real wide range of participants in here. Like there are research scholars, there are faculties, there are industry persons, and very senior professors having doctorates. So a wide range of participants are there, and I will try to cater the need of everyone. But though it is a difficult task, and with this introduction, let me move on to today's presentation. So hope you can see the. You can see my presentation, right?
Yes, ma'am. Can you make it full screen?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Visible. Clearly visible.
Is it okay? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Audible you are.
Okay. So, means today's presentation. 1 minute. Sorry. Okay. So today I'm planning to talk about semiconductor device-based sensors. So, yesterday's we heard a lot about MOSFET, different kinds of MOSFETs. It's all about modeling and simulation. So we have also introduced to it tool so that if you have identified a device, now you are means for if you are able to practice in it that software, you will be able to simulate one structure and you will be able to get the IV characteristics and other characteristics of a device. And if you can combine that modeling and simulation, then you can really make a very wonderful job. Like you can go for a very good publications and all, combining modeling and simulation. So in this class means in a different field, like different, it's not different field, same field only, but I will be talking more about in the fabrication side. Okay, so how to fabricate a sensor, what are sensors? So how to fabricate a sensor? What are the steps involved and what are the sensor characters? So I will be more into that. So means it will be like means it will not make you boring. Like those who have already in working in this film may find it little boring, but please excuse me for that. So I have planned my talk in such a way that so first I will be talking about a device, a sensor that's basically a hydrogen sensor that I have fabricated and I have characterized at clean room facilities in IAC Bangalore. So first I will explain about that. So what are the steps and what I have done. Then I will talk about little bit about the biosensors in which I haven't worked. I haven't experimentally done anything, but I will be working on it. And finally, a little bit about tactile sensors. So this session is all about sensors. Okay. So this is just showing you a survey. This is actually published in 1996. So you might be thinking, why? What is the significance now? Because it is, although I couldn't find a recent review on this, actually a survey of semiconductor devices research. So here you can see in 1996 they have found that there are 67 major devices identified and about that 110 variations in each of them. So right now it will be very number will be very much by this time. So this is just to inform you that there are wide variety of semiconductor devices. A very common one we know in diodes different categories. Then resistive devices, then MOSFETs also a wide range of MOSFETs. Then sensors is actually the semiconductor device based. So any of according to application, we can choose any kind of devices to act as a sensor. So there are wide variety of semiconductor devices available. So it's up to us to where to work and where to research actually. So you will be because you all are faculty, so you have know the importance of semiconductors and all those things. I don't have to explain. But even then, why we are always interested in semiconductors is, of course, yeah, you also know that it is because we can easily tailor their conductivity properties. Okay, so we by doping or some optical excitation or anything, we will be able to change these properties according to our need. That is why we are always going for this semiconductors. And yeah, so the semiconductor based device based sensors, why it is important is there are a lot of semiconductor materials like semiconductor oxides by which we can build devices which have got very good, which provide us very good performance metrics. So semiconductor oxides are a good candidate for making devices which can act as several kind of sensors. So sensors, the definition everybody will be knowing, it provides a usable output in response to some specific measurement. Like that is what we call sensors. So this is a general representation of any kind of sensor. Since I'm talking about gas sensor, I have specified it as gas sensor. First, we'll have the target material, maybe gas, then a receptor, that semiconductor material, sensing material will be there. Then the sensors, maybe some of its quantities will be changing according to the target gas, maybe work function or mass or whatever. And that change using transducer, that change will be converted into a measurable output like electrical signal, current or change in current, or change in resistance or change in capacity. So it is basically a building block, a general representation of a sensor. Any kind of sensor, if you take this will be the basic block. Okay, there will be a transducer, there will be a sensing material. And also in here, we are talking about nanosensors. Why this nanosensors and nanotechnology important here? Yeah, the nano sensor means we are reducing the size. What is the importance of reducing the size in when we are speaking about gas sensor or any kind of sensor is its surface to volume ratio will be increasing if you are reducing its size. So surface to volume ratio will be increasing if you are reducing its size. So that is why we are going for that, for example, if we can increase that surface reacting size, then we can expect a very big, very good sensitivity and selectivity and other performance metrics. So that is why we are going for why nano sensors are important compared to the bulk sensors. And also you also will be knowing like the material, its properties in bulk and its property in nano level is completely different. So you can see the gold in yellow color, but if the nano particles of the gold, it is not having that yellow color. It is some I don't remember, it's some red or some other color. Even that color appearance, that properties itself are changing in the nano level. So some like gold is not a catalyst at the bulk level, but in nano level it can act as a very good catalyst for certain reaction. So there are several materials whose properties will change completely when it is coming to the nano level. So in some cases it will be favorable for us when we are talking about sensors and all. So we have seen nano, we are going for nano. We see that we are using semiconductor oxides. So what are its advantages? Why we are going for this kind of thing? So when we are talking about a research in this, like maybe I have found out a lot of PhD aspirants in our group who also want to do PhD. So they will be means many of my friends and students ask me they want to do PhD. They want to make a research proposal, but they don't know what to do, how to do, which area. So this kind of people, this FDPs, attending this kind FDPs will be really, because you can able to find a topic for you to build a proposal out of it. So here, this is how we are thinking, because I want to, first I thought, yeah, I want to develop a gas sensor. Then I have to think about which material I should go for. Then nano or bulk or in which thing we need. Then what is the important? If we go for that, what are the advantages that we can expect? That kind of thing. So here in nanostructure semiconductor oxides, we is enhance the surface area we have seen. Then economically the cost is it is more economic and better reversibility. Better reversibility in the sense it is a very important characteristic when we are speaking about a sensor. That is, if after the sensing reaction, after, for example, if you're speaking about a hydrogen sensor, it sends hydrogen, and if its properties change when the hydrogen coming into contact with the sensor, means we cannot use it for further hydrogen sensing. It will be like a use and throw thing. So we are not interested in developing that kind of sensors. So that is after removal of hydrogen, this should be go back to the normal device level. So that is what it is meant by better reversibility, long life expectancy, of course, it is deserved, we know. Then fast response. Fast response in the sense how much time it takes to respond to a gas to achieve its maximum sensitivity. So how fast it is responding, it is also very important. Then lowered, it should be able to detect a very low concentration of the measurement also. So these are the not just for gas sensor. If you are talking about any kind of sensor, these are the certain criteria that we should be able to focus. So if you're speaking about this like a gas sensor, that is sensitivity, selectivity, response time, recovery time, optimum temperature, stability. All these are the can be called as the performance parameters of a gas sensor. So sensitivity means no, you all know like if we are making if suppose the current of our device is increasing, when we are exposing that device to a particular measure like gas or something, then the sensitivity we can be calculated as the relative difference. The current in the presence of gas and minus the current in the presence of air divided by. So this will give you the relative sensitivity. And what even by selectivity means if we are building a hydrogen sensor, what if it is going to sense all other gases also with equal sensitivity, then it cannot be called as a hydrogen sensor, right? Because it will sense any other gas. So selectivity is also important. It should, if we are making a gas sensor, hydrogen sensor, it should be highly selective to hydrogen. So that is very important. Then response time, I have already said. So here you can see this is actually a response curve of a gas sensor. So here you can see this is the current. This portion, the baseline, will be showing you the current in the presence of air. So when we are introducing it to a target gas, the current is increasing, and when you are removing the target gas, the current is decreasing, and it is reaching to the baseline. So the response time is actually the time taken for the sensor to come from the baseline to 90 percentage of the response. This is there are some other definitions also for response time, standard definitions. We are means we can follow anything, so I have followed like this: the time taken from the baseline to the time taken to approach the 90 percentage of the response. So response time and recovery time, exactly the other part of the curve, like from maximum sensitivity to 10 percentage of the current value, how much time it is taken to get back to the baseline value. So that is recovery time. Then every devices will be having an optimum temperature. Optimum temperature means where it will be showing the maximum performance. So we have to optimize that also, in which temperature it will show the maximum sensitivity. Maybe some devices will be working at very high temperature. So that thing also we have to find out. Then stability, of course, I have said. If the device is working properly, if it is giving me 50% sensitivity today, it should give me 50% sensitivity after 2 months or 3 months or that. And in the temperature, or if you are in a harsh environment like in chemical or whatever we have put in the sensor, it should be stable according to the applications. We may be needing one of the parameters very high, the other. So this is how we should be able to think about what sensor, what kind of device, and what kind of material I am going to use for fabricating my sensor. So these are the main three, just showing a very three structures that can be used as a gas sensor. The first one is a Schottky diode type gas sensor. Then this is, as you know, MOS capacitor and a MOSFET type. So any kind of devices that having that whose current or any characteristic will change according to the presence of measurand or analyte, we can say that it can be acting as a sensor. So now let me explain you about the sensor that I have fabricated. So it is basically a Schottky diode. Schottky diode means, you know what is Schottky diode? It is actually a contact between semiconductor and the metal. We all know that. So this is over the silicon substrate here. I have made a zinc oxide thin film, and over that a Schottky diode. A very simple device it is. So how this maybe for explaining this thing. So I'm trying to explain you the details because the ultimate underlying principle may be same for different kinds of sensors. So if you can understand this, if you are want to read some other sensor or some in general, you will be able to easily correlate with this thing. So the mechanism will be different for every for each sensor, and the device will be different. But even then, that underlying principles can be same. So if you can understand these things, you can explore more in this area. So Schottky diode means I'm going for Schottky diode, so I should understand how it is working. So that is very important. I should be able to know how my device is working when I am going to introduce it to a gas, the minute details. So here you will be knowing, but I will explain a very fast. Like this is like a metal semiconductor contact. You can see. So this is the Fermi level. So this E5M represents the work function of the metal, and this is semiconductor. So metal semiconductor, this is before contact. We haven't made any contact here. Then this E5M represents the work function of the metal. That is from the Fermi level to the vacuum level. That is the work function. Then here it is the E5S is the work function of the semiconductor, and EKS is the electron affinity of the semiconductor. So if you are joining a metal and semiconductor like this, if you are keeping in contact, what happened is, we know this is an N-type since EF is near to conduction band, it is an N-type semiconductor. So there are plenty of electrons here, right? There are plenty of electrons here. And in the case of metal, we can see that here there are electrons as well as plenty of vacant states. That is the importance of metal. There is no band gap, nothing. So it is overlap. So here we can expect lot of vacant states here. So when we join these two, metal and semiconductor, we can expect that the electrons will be flowing from metal, means electrons should be flowing from this semiconductor to metal. But you can see here there is a barrier present here. Because once we are joined, we know that the Fermi level should be aligned to each other. So Fermi level will be aligning, the band will be bending, and there is a barrier present here. This is called Schottky barrier. Okay, so this, in order for the electrons to jump over this barrier, we have to give the positive, like positive biasing. So when we give positive biasing, the band bend upwards. So these electrons can easily jump over this barrier and come to the metal and corresponds to the current flow. So this is the basic principle of a Schottky diode. Okay. So in hydrogen sensing, if we are using a Schottky diode for hydrogen sensing, what is happening is, because of certain dipole formation and all, this Schottky barrier height will get reduced. So we can expect more current flow here. Okay, so that is the basic principle of a Schottky diode if we are using it for a hydrogen sensing, because the Schottky barrier will get reduced and the more electrons can jump cross over this barrier. So actually it is jumping over this barrier, and we are calling it as thermionic emission, because it is jumping over this barrier to the other side. So the thermionic emission, so it will get increased if you are. So this is the principle of a particular sensor that I am talking about. So why this Schottky metals? Then first I understand I'm going for Schottky diode. Then Schottky diode is semiconductor metal contact. Semiconductor, I have decided it is zinc oxide, because zinc oxide, through literature I found out that zinc oxide has got good properties, that it can act as a hydrogen sensor. It has got hydrogen sensing properties. But to increase its sensitivity, selectivity, if we are able to build a Schottky diode out of zinc oxide thin film, then we can expect good performance. So how we select the Schottky metal? So here you can see that here the work function of metal, and this is the electron affinity. Usually semiconductor we talk more about the electron affinity. So here you can see that this barrier is formed here because this work function is greater than the electron affinity of this semiconductor. So any metal whose work function is considerably greater than the electron affinity of semiconductor, it can form a Schottky diode. Okay, so I know that zinc oxide work function is around 4.35 volt. So any high work function metals like gold, platinum, and palladium, this can form good Schottky diode for can get the zinc oxide. Also, this palladium and also the mechanism that we'll see later. So this is actually the mechanism that I have just explained. So here the barrier height will be reducing in the presence of hydrogen. So more number of electrons will be flowing over this, and we can expect increased current. In the presence of air current will be less, but in the presence of hydrogen, current will get increased because of this dipole formation. This hydrogen atoms will be forming a dipole in the interface. This dipole formation will be reducing this barrier height. So the current will get increased.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, can you please use your cursor when you are pointing to a particular part of the diagram?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Okay. So till now it is okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So we have said about what is happening at the interface, that is metal semiconductor interface. We said hydrogen will be coming. It will dissociate into hydrogen atoms. So here comes the importance of my metal. So when we are designing a structure, each and every layer is very important, and we need to know how it is going to affect our sensitivity, selectivity. So I am taking an example of only a particular device, so that you can think in that way for your device. So here you can see this is the surface reaction. Said this gas sensing is basically a surface sensing reaction is also happening here. So I can say that in the presence of air. So this green dots you can consider it as air. Okay, oxygen molecules. So O2 molecules will be coming over here. When it comes to the zinc oxide surface, the oxygen molecule will be absorbed over the surface, and it will be becoming O2 minus and O minus. So if it want to become O2 minus and O minus, definitely it has to gain electrons, right? It has to gain electrons. So oxygen is getting electrons from the zinc oxide surface. So definitely when the electron is getting reduced, we can say that the conductance is reduced here. That is, the conductance is reduced, that we have got high resistance over here. And here, in presence of hydrogen, what happened is, when it comes to hydrogen, it will... yes.
Please, I'm not... if you're using the cursor, then I'm not seeing it.
I'm using the cursor.
You cannot see where you are pointing.
Ma'am.
Oh. Now also?
No, ma'am.
Madam, I think you can use in the presentation. There is.
Now we can see.
Actually, this is not the cursor. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now we can see.
Okay. Okay. So, so here, when hydrogen is coming on. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, ma'am. We can see. We can see the person.
Okay. So what is the problem? Now you cannot see, right?
No. Now it's not. You cannot be seen.
Okay, let me use my pointer only. Okay, so it is when hydrogen is coming over here. This blue dot, it is actually hydrogen. So it will come in contact with this metal. So here this metal is Schottky metal in our case. So I am using palladium. So I have used several metals and found out that palladium is the best thing. So this palladium is actually a catalyst for my hydrogen dissociation reaction. So the hydrogen can easily get dissociated into hydrogen atoms when it come in contact with the metal. So that hydrogen will dissociate hydrogen atoms, and this hydrogen will receive, actually it will become hydrogen, oxygen, water molecules by supplying electrons to the zinc oxide layer. So here electrons we have gained electrons, so obviously the conductance will be increased here, resistance will be reduced. So we can observe the corresponding change in our current also. That is how, when we are, because here the current is getting changed, current is getting increased, then we have exposed our device to the target gas. Here it is hydrogen. So now we have decided everything, we understood the mechanism and everything. Then how to fabricate this thing? So this is a very simple device. Mechanism and deposition will be almost same for the semiconductor devices that will be compatible to the microelectronics technology. So here you can see that it is a zinc oxide thin film for silicon substrate. So silicon substrate, we have to, hope you have seen silicon substrate. First thing is we have to go it for our RCA cleaning. to remove all the impurities and all. Then we have to deposit zinc oxide thin film over the silicon substrate. So over the deposition technique, there are a lot of deposition technique like CVD, chemical vapor deposition, physical vapor deposition. Chemical vapor deposition, where it is some reactions will be happening, and the result of reaction, some byproduct will be formed, and that byproduct will get deposited over our substrate as the material. Whereas in physical vapor deposition, there is no chemical reaction involved. So actually, it is a physical process. So here I have used the chemical vapor deposition. So a lot of different kinds of. So based on our application, based on our preference, we'll go for some deposition technique for zinc oxide. So through literature, it is completely means we have to support all these things through the literature only. So I have seen that using RF sputtering, it is a kind of PVD. I have got a uniform. I can get a uniform zinc oxide layer with good properties. So if you have all the other deposition techniques with you, you can experiment with each and everything and find out which one is good. Or with the support of literature, you can go forward with which kind of device, which kind of thing you have. So I have gone for this sputtering, so I'm not going to explain. I think everybody will be knowing this. Right? Can I get a feedback like these things should be explained or people will be knowing?
Yes, ma'am.
You can explain the thickness, how much should be process can be tailored to get sensing. So
okay.
that's what. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So. Means how to just like sir asked how to find out the dimension of zinc oxide. Here, this finding the dimensions and all these things. When it comes to this point, the importance of simulation, modeling, yesterday's class is coming to here. Because if we cannot go and fabricate all the dimensions and see which one is good. So before fabrication, we'll do some modeling. We should do some modeling or simulation in TCAD tools to find out the optimum dimensions of each layer. So this is like the RF sputtering thing. So this is the deposition technique that I have used for deposit zinc oxide thin film. So here you can see that this is the substrate here. So target is being kept here. So this is like substrate means here I have put my silicon substrate. This is a zinc oxide target. So we are making a vacuum here. Plasma is being generated. And this argon molecules will get hit over this substrate, over this target, that is basically our zinc oxide target, and it will knock out the zinc oxide atoms from here, and it will get deposited over our substrate. So this is an example for physical vapor deposition and RF sputtering. So this is how it is working, and I have used this particular technique. You can use any other techniques also, based on which one will be giving you the better film quality.
Madam, and one more thing, the band gap, how will you optimize? Whether are you targeting for a particular band gap of zinc oxide or it's a...
No, actually the band gap of zinc oxide, it is a wide band gap semiconductor 3.4. So we are not playing with the band gap engineering or nothing, because if you want to change the band gap means we have to go for alloy, we have to make it different alloy compositions and all. So here we are not at all interested in band gap or band gap engineering, varying the band gap also. You consider it as a constant. It is almost 3.4 electron volt. It is a wide band gap semiconductor. So like that.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is like how to fabricate. First one is substrate you have taken. You have cleaned it. Zinc oxide is being deposited over it. Then the metal is being deposited of the zinc oxide. That also I have used RF sputtering. RF sputtering is not the only thing in PVD. You can go for E-beam evaporation. You can go for thermal evaporation, all these things. Then aluminum, the back contact you have seen, that ohmic contact between silicon and aluminum. A silicon, that is aluminum, is deposited. So through this step, I have fabricated this complete device. So these are the fabrication steps involved. So if we are going for some MOSFET or some other things, one more step will be coming here, that is lithography step. So here my device is not very complicated. So here I can go for only a shadow mask technique. Shadow mask means I will be having a stainless steel mask having small dots in it. So if you want to deposit metals over it, I will place that shadow mask over that. I will get metal deposit only in that area. But if your device is like different, some different layers and different patterns are there, then we have to go for lithography step here. So they just for your information, these are the, like this is like the RS sputtering unit you can see. So E-beam evaporation unit. So here, this is the wet bench, actually where we are doing this, all the cleanings and all the chemical uh, uh, things we are doing here. Then this is for annealing. Annealing means after depositing the zinc oxide thin film, we will preferably anneal it to get the better crystalline quality and all. So we have deposited our thin film. Okay, so the job is not over. How can we know that we have deposited a good thin film or good? We have got the things right. We have to verify. So then we go for this characterization techniques. Like we have XRD, X-ray diffraction spectroscopy. Here, using this, we can understand. We can understand the molecular structure as well as the crystallinity of our zinc oxide thin film, whether it is of high crystal quality or something like that. Because it is working on this X-ray diffraction principle. So this is basically atomic force microscopy. Here, this is actually surface characterization, IFM and scanning electron microscopy, that surface. So AFM will be giving you more details about the surface roughness. Okay, so here we have it like 10 to 20 nanometer of AFM tip will be there. It is moving over our sample, and based on that movement, like that tip surface movement, that laser beam will be there, and that we'll get the details from that tip movement of here. And scanning electron microscopy, we will be using we'll be passing electrons over the surface, and based on the scattering and all, we will be getting the image of our surface. So in order to characterize the surface, we'll go for AFM, XRSEM, and photoluminescence for optical characterization. So this is like, if you are building a device, definitely we need to get the current voltage characteristic. So this is like DC probe station. So here you can see this is the microscope here. We'll place our sample here. There are a lot of, we'll take the contacts from our metal contacts from the metal. Then we'll get the IV characteristics over this. This is the DC, like semiconductor parameter analyzer. We will be able to get the IV measurements. So it is just showing the picture. So this is the XRD image of the zinc oxide thin film that we have fabricated. So here you can see a large peak, right? So from this we can understand that our deposited film is having good quality, because this peak, it is having a uniform arrangement. It is having crystalline nature, and we can based on this angle, we can say in which this 230-degree angle we got this peak, and there will be a database for this. For each material, like zinc oxide, it will be around this, like 34 point. So based on that if we got peak in that, according to that database, we can say that my crystalline or whatever I have deposited is good quality without any impurities of kind of things. So this will be giving you the this AFM, that is AFM image you can see. So here it is not clear, I think. So here you can see that a lot of pointed. That kind of. So this is giving you an important information about the surface roughness, very minor details about the surface. So I have said I have used a shadow mask and to form the short curves. Finally, it will look like this, a zinc oxide thin film with lot of dots. So this will be representing the metal, like here palladium or platinum or gold. So this will be only this dotted area. I got the metal deposited because I have used a shadow mask. So this again is spectroscopy is another characterization technique, EDX. So where we'll get to understand what are the chemical compositions, what all the elements are present. So I have fabricated my device. Everything I have fabricated. Then I have gone for this electrical characterization. This is actually the typical Schottky diode characteristics. So this is for it means somewhere you can see palladium, somewhere you can see platinum. Actually, I have fabricated all the things, and I will be showing you some results only. So this is how the Schottky diode characteristics will look. We have this different colors shows at different temperature. We have we have taken the IV. So this will give you an idea about the stability of your devices. What will happen if you are increasing the temperature? So we can see. So from this curve, we will be able to extract a lot of parameters. Like if it has a diode, it will be Schottky diode. It will be ideality factor and barrier height. So from the equations from this graph, we will be able to find out the Schottky diode parameters, and we will confirm that, yeah, exactly, we got a good device. Schottky diode means it is Schottky diode. It is not showing any ohmic characteristics. It's a Schottky diode. So now I am ready with my device. What is the next step? We have to go for the sensing characteristics. Okay, so this is how we measure the gas sensing characteristics of the device. Okay, so here, this is the sample mount. Here, I will keep my device, my sensor here. So this is the sensor. Actually, the sensor lab here, this kind of setup is there. So we will mix hydrogen and synthetic air together using a mass flow controller to get an appropriate concentration of hydrogen. Then we will pass it over our device. Then this heater is there because it will work at some particular temperature only because it is a semiconductor oxide device. So it will give the sufficient temperature for it. So the reaction will happen, and for Keithley source measure unit, we will measure the current. So based on, first we will not pass hydrogen, only air. Then we will mix it to desired concentration of hydrogen. Then we will measure the current. So this will be giving you the current at different temperatures and different hydrogen concentration. If you can come here, this is a palladium zinc oxide hydrogen sensing characteristics. So here you can see this blue color. It is representing the current at 0 ppm, that is without any hydrogen present. But as we increase the hydrogen concentration, like here 10 and after 1000 ppm, we can understand, we can see the increase of current here. Okay, so this is how it is responding to my hydrogen. So in the presence of hydrogen, we will be calculating, excuse me. Sorry. So here you can see this is the this is the Schottky barrier height variations. You can measure that from the IV. I have already said when the hydrogen is coming, the Schottky barrier will be getting reduced. So we can get a quantitative view of how much current, because how much the Schottky barrier is changing in the presence of air and hydrogen. So in this way we can characterize our sensor. So it is any kind of sensor, these things should be there, like how this parameter is changing. Maybe in this case it is short barrier height, and maybe in some other case it will be some other things. So that we need to quantify it. So this will be giving you that same thing only, but it is in the current time curve. You can see a transient analysis. So here you can see that as we increasing the hydrogen concentration, we are getting high current. So this is how it is working as a hydrogen sensor. So I have said to you that we have to measure its selectivity also. When we are designing something, we have to go through all the aspects of a sensor. So we have understand that it is giving us good sensitivity, but we have to see how it is responding to other gases. So we have checked it with the presence of hydrogen. At methane also it is responding, but compared to hydrogen, because methane is a hydrogen containing gas, so it is sensing, but compared to hydrogen, the sensitivity is less. So we can say that it is more selective to hydrogen. So maybe it can be other research work, like how to increase the selectivity more. How can it increase the selectivity compared to methane more? How the selectivity can be increased technically. So if you are searching on it, that can be another research problem. And I have checked it for nitrogen dioxide. It is basically an oxidizing gas. So we got very little sensing. It is not at all sensing for nitrogen dioxide. So we can understand some reducing gases like hydrogen containing gas. It is showing some sensitivity. But since it is less, we can neglect it. But some cases we cannot neglect this. In that case, we need to find out more and more techniques to increase. That is how we will be finding the problems in this area. So this is another approach, like whatever I have said, we have fabricated and simulated, modeled it. So all these things. So this is like it's not much explored area, but I am giving you just like a thing. Machine learning is actually, I'm not an expert in it, but even then machine learning is like we'll be having a lot of data with us, millions. So it is playing with the data, right? So through experiments or simulation or modeling, if we have a bunch of data with us, we will be able to train a model. We will be able to train a machine learning algorithm with that, so that it will. We have make them learn. Yeah, this is when this comes, this should be the output. When this comes, this should be the output. So with millions of data, we have trained this thing. Okay, we made this a very good student. So when in a particular case, when some other input comes, it would be able to predict what is my output. So this can be as a guide for your fabrication. If you have a bunch of data from modeling or simulation, you can use it for your to predict some data over there. So here, for example, here what I have done is I have varied the zinc oxide thin film thickness like a 5 to 100, because I cannot vary it in fabrication. This is not about fabrication. It's about modeling and using machine learning only. So I have varied this thickness from 5 to 300 with very, very minute step, 5 nanometer thickness I have varied in 60 steps, and temperature also I varied. Then I have calculated the barrier height difference in the presence of height and I simulated it. After getting through ticket simulation only I did, then we'll get a bunch of data out of it, right? Lot of what is happening. So this data we'll be using to train a particular machine learning algorithm. So here I have used the support vector machine. So when we train the thing, that we have developed a model out of it. So then after that, you will be able to predict. So here you can see that the black thing is actually the actual value where I have trained from our thing. And this is the predicted value. So it's not exactly same, but somewhat same. So this is we cannot fabricate each and every device with all the variations, nothing. So that is how this fabrication, the simulation, modeling and machine learning, all these kind of things are going to help our research in this devices and sensors area. So finally, this is another approach. The modeling and simulation also we can use, but this is a different kind of approach. Maybe you can also explore more in this. So I think we can take a break. Is it okay? Can we go for a 10 minutes break?
Yes, yes.
So is it right? Professor also. So the next I'm going to explain something about biosensors. Just like I said, I haven't personally fabricated it. Yeah, this is a new area that I am also going to work on. So I'll just share with you whatever I have read and so biosensors actually nowadays it is very important at this time of corona and all in the case of disease diagnosis and in a lot of things biosensors are very important. Like you can see the applications here. Prosthetic devices, this is artificial limbs and then drug discovery, disease detection, environmental monitoring like gas sensor can be considered as one of the biosensor. Then soil quality monitoring, food quality monitoring, adulteration and all, toxins and water quality management. So all these are different applications of biosensor. So even you have even if there is a bacteria on chip. So I don't know whether anybody have heard about this. Maybe everybody will be knowing it. This bacteria on actually a team from MIT has even developed a bacteria on chip. It means like they have engineered an E. coli bacteria. Okay, they have engineered an E. coli bacteria, and they have put that engineered E. coli bacteria in our gastrointestinal tract. So it is going to detect the bleeding in the tract. Okay, so how means they have engineered it in such a way that when it is come in contact with this blood, the light will be produced. So by measuring that light, so it is like that much the technology is being developed by exploiting each and every aspect of nature to build a sensor. So that is how the research in this very interesting area of sensor that is biosensor. So again here this is like it's just looking as a tattoo here, but actually this is actually a sensor that is able to monitor our glucose level and oxygen level in our blood and all. So this is actually wearable. So you can call it a tattoo sensor. So all these are different applications of biosensors. So what is basically a biosensor? So we can even go for the type definition like electrochemical biosensor is a self-contained integrated device which is capable of providing an analytical information using a biological recognition element. That is the main important thing here, using a biological recognition element which is retained in direct spatial contact with the electrochemical transduction. So this is going to give you a general representation of a biosensor. So the gas sensor I have shown in the same thing only, but here this biological recognition element or bioelement is an additional thing in the case of biosensor. So it is having, like you can see, this is a sample. Okay, this is a sample here. You can see the sample contains different kinds of molecules like square, rectangle, triangle. This represents different kinds of molecules in a sample. Then we have a biorecognition element or bioelement. Then we have a transducer. Yeah, we know the transducer to measure. To measure the quantities in a measurable form, we need a transducer. So it will be, we get a measurable signal out of it and we put it display. So here this importance of this, so you can see here this. Hello. This is a specific kind of element, so that it is selective to only a particular kind of molecules of our interest. So this is going to give our sensor a very high specificity. That is the importance of biosensor, because here you can see only the circular molecules. So molecules having the circular shape will get attached to this body, and that is the only thing that of our interest. Okay, so that will get attached to this biological recognition element or bioelement, and based on the reactions at the surface, that conductance or potential whatever it changes, and we can measure that. So this is the basic principle of a biosensor. So this thing can be different for different material, different type of application, and based on this type of this bioelement that we are using, and based on this conduction technique that we are going for, there are different kind of biosensors available. So there are like potentiometric, ambient. So our interest is like field effect type of biosensor. That is, we have seen MOSFET, right? So this is actually a transistor-based biosensing. This is like electrode and the conventional technique. But here industrial transistor. That is this bio-FET. You can call it as a bio-FET. That is transistor which can function as a biosensor. There are several types of transistors. That is, it's drain to current changes because of the surface reaction that is happening present in the surface. So this is that is whatever that addition of the biological recognition element, that is called, it can be called as immobilization. So there are different types, there are different methods by which we can go for it. So that is how the concept of bio-FET. This is nothing but our ordinary FET, that is field effect transistor type of devices. But because of the presence of that analytes, that it's a surface, that channel conductance will be varying, and we can expect a change in the current in the output. And by measuring the current, we will be able to sense the particular analyte in our sample. So that is the different terms. That is N-FETs, that is enzyme FETs, immuno-FETs, DNA FETs. So all these are basically will be. So this is actually, you can see here, this is immuno-FET. That is, we have a transistor here, gate insulator here, and this is actually the antibody. We have immobilized this gate surface with the antibody. We have made this. Okay, and we are putting this in a when the antigen is coming, as this antigen antibody will get binded. So that is the biological phenomena. That is, this antibody we have developed and we have mobilized it. We have made it over the surface. So when the antigen comes over it, this antigen antibody, the binding will happen. This reaction will change the conductance across this channel, which will result in the variation in the current. So this is actually in a bio-FET. So transistor which can sense some particular analytes. So bio-FET. So here this is DNA FET. So same thing only, our transistor only, but this having different applications when we are going for different structure, different materials, and so here this is for DNA testing that you can see here. Here we have immobilized the surface with an antibody of our interest based on the disease where we are going for. This antibodies we have to immobilize the surface with antibody. This one we can be called as immunoassays. So only the term is different. The device, the principle thing is same. Then DNA FET, that is like we have immobilized the surface with a single strand of DNA. Okay, so when the complementary strands come, double-stranded DNA, it will become hybridized and DNA here. And this reaction will cause a surface potential of the channel conductivity change that will be reflected in measurements in our electrical characteristics. So in that way, this is also the same thing. I explained the analyte, the receptor. So here the transducer, they are using a transistor. That is the only thing. So this ISFET means the ion selective field effect. Our oldest type of this is where the bio-FET, the concept has started with this ISFET. So it is basically a MOSFET only, but the metal gate is replaced by an ion density membrane with an electrolyte solution reference electron. So this is the first type of bio-FETs that has been invented. So based on this principle, now there are numerous kinds of transistors which can able to sense our bioanalyte. So that is called biosensors. So here we can see that we can understand from here the specificity will be very high because this antibody-antigen reaction is actually the biological reaction itself it is happening here. So only that material will be getting. So even any other material is there, it will not get extracted. It's like a lock-and-key mechanism. So here also. So we will expect very high specificity compared to other kind of conventional techniques. So this is another interesting kind of thing like in biosensors. So beetle chip FET, that is this is a very thing is like we are exploring each and every aspect of nature to incorporate our transistor device and be able to provide. So here you can see what this is beetle or bio-FET. What you can see here the insect, it is insect has got a very particular characteristic. It can sense the smell of everything, right? There's antenna there, and this is the antenna here. So then the antenna, there are several kind of small hairs are there. That is actually sensilla. It is called sensilla. So this can detect a very minute odor and very minute chemicals. So this is the speciality of insect antenna. So what here we are using is that insect antenna itself we are using here. So insect antenna we are dipping it in an electrolyte that is having direct contact with the FET, and based on if it is this insect is presenting in some odor kind of like thing or some if some particular molecules if it sells some particular thing, some depolarization will be happening in the sensillas, that is here an antenna, that will get reflected over our FET and the conductance will be changing. We can see that difference in the current voltage characteristics. So this kind of thing. So basically it's just nothing or transistor only. So based on that, based on the how sensitive it is working, we can explore a lot of possibilities, exploring the nature, what is happening in the nature. So this is also the same thing only. So here, instead of using the like the incorporating with our fabricated device, and if this can change our some characteristic of our device, then it can use some wonderful things over here. So here this is just showing its this is responding to this kind of chemical. This order is actually a plant hormone, like plant. Important just like in farm and agriculture and all. If this thing maybe when the presence of pesticide, this order will be coming. So we may not be able to detect that thing and even the our devices. But this kind of things can be able to detect this kind of order, and on this their response. This is the current response of this. So based on after this concentration of this increases, we can see that the response is also increasing. So this is how the research in this biosensor is. So this is not in a complete market means industry, but the work is going on. That is about bioequivalence, whole digital bioequivalence. Another thing is other scientific device. So what my aim is to give you an introduction to what are the different kinds of sensors, the possible kinds of device that can be used as a biosensor. So this is like a HEMT device, high electron mobility transistor. That is, it is basically a heterojunction device. So here also the same thing. This is a HEMT. We have to fabricate a HEMT. So by functionally immobilizing the surface, we can use it for different biosensing application. For example, if you want to use this transistor means it is a sensor actually. So I am not going into much details of HEMT. So it is HEMT means high electron mobility transistor. It is a heterojunction device. So here means there are the most common one is aluminum gallium nitride and gallium nitride again. Heterojunction means we will be knowing that it is a junction between two dissimilar materials with different band gaps. So in that there are two-dimensional electron gas will be formed. So that way, by according to the reaction at the surface, so the current we can reflect those things in our current. We can measure it and like that. So here this is like an antibody. We can use it for disease detection, diagnosis, and all. DNA testing. If you are making a single stranded DNA as a probe, then hybridization will happen, and that potential will be changing over the surface, and will get reflected in the current carrier system. So it can be used as an ion sensor, ion selective membrane. We have to functionalize in the surface, and a gas sensor like that. So this is like a reported thing only. So this is basically a gallium nitride HEMT transistor. So this is actually for detecting an endocrine, something called endocrine disruptor. That is, it is like in animals. If this is present, it will be affecting its reproducing capacity and all. So this is here. This vitellogenin is actually the biomarker. That is, if that particular animal, like it is mainly for the animal, if it is exposed to this endocrine disruptor, any kind of endocrine disruptor means it can be any kind of molecule, some kind of chemical. So if it is exposed to that, this thing, the vitellogenin, this is actually the biomarker that is corresponding to this phenomenon. So we have to identify that. So what we'll do is we have fabricated a transistor here. Then we have functionalized. We have functionalized the surface with a thioglycolic acid. Then this is actually we have function. This is actually a probe for easy binding. We have used this thioglycolic acid, and then we have functionalized with the vitellogenin antibody. Okay. So when the antigen comes, so it will get lock over this lock mechanism, antigen antibody reaction will come, and then we can expect that corresponding variation in current in our device. So this kind of devices, like if you have a like CVD, metal organic CVD, and all, we can fabricate. We can fabricate this structure. This is nothing like we cannot fabricate. We can find out where the facility is available, and we can fabricate this thing. So by finding out this thing, how to make the biological recognition part, then we have got variety of applications with a single transistor. So this is actually a very good research area where you can explore a lot. Very interesting also, and also the fabrication wise also it is not it is not impossible. If you can find out the facilities here, it is mostly is enough. I think IIC Bangalore or IT Bombay, it will be available. So it is a fabricatable device. You can fabricate it. So this is how it will enhance sensor. So coming to the coronavirus, like this time also recently, I just searched for it. I have found that certain devices. I even found out the transistor-based device for detecting papers having published for detecting coronavirus. So right now we know that we have antigen test and like antibody test, and we are now usually doing this PCR test. Like it will some time. We cannot get the like. It will take some time because we have to make the culture, RNA culture, and those kind of things, and reverse polymerase chain reactions here. But if you can able to detect it in a very fast way, like real-time result we will get, then it is like an added advantage. So the very recent literature, very recent. You can see here, this is actually a graphene-based transistor. You can see this is a graphene-based transistor, source, drain, and gate. So here, first we have, what they have done is, they have functionalized this COVID-2 antibody. This is the COVID-2 antibody. Then when it we need to prepare the solution, nothing, and the antibody comes. Because of this reaction, the channel conductance may be vary, and we can view the change in the current. So in this way, yeah, it is in March or something like it for published. So this is kind of thing. So what they have to do is how they have done the research is like they have functionalized it. Then they have to they cannot take just one. We have to confirm SARS-CoV-2 antibody. So they have to do this ELISA test for confirming that it is an antibody. Then they have, so this is how the people are doing the research, covering all the aspects. So they have found out that they have made this antibody, then they have functionalized it, then they have introduced it to the antigen, and they have found what the P-base, like butyric acid and hydroxysuccinic ester. This is actually an ester, it's a P-base. So that is actually acting as a binding. It helps to bind the antibody to the substance. So this is how in the presence of this antigen, like how the response is changing. First they have measured only in the presence of antibody they have measured, then in the presence of the antigen they take the sample, it will be in some solution, right? So that saliva or whatever from swab when we are taking, it will be some transport medium. So they have to see whether the sensor will work even if the sample is in a particular transport medium. It's called a transport medium. So they have to check. We have to check for that also, because we will not be getting the swab as it is. So some universal transport medium will be there. So while developing a sensor, we so this is also recently reported that is corona-2 detection only. So this is based on gold and nanoparticle. So this is also the same thing. When it is coming to the surface potential will be changing, and you can see the radiation in the potential. This is some thermoplasmonic into detail. Okay. So here, like you can see that March 21 it is received and April 8 got accepted, and area is like so much demanding. So whenever we have found out to detect this thing, the research community is accepting it very fast. They are giving more importance to this kind of research. So it's just like we are getting inspiration from the nanotechnology. inside. We'll be able to like we are utilizing all these things to deliver drugs and all. At the same time, we should be able to combat the dangerous virus also. So these are the just nature. We are exploring everything that is happening in the nature. For example, even the painless injection you might have heard about. That is, it is derived from thing is getting from the mosquito. Like when a mosquito bites us, we will not get that much pain, right? Because of the proboscis. The mouth is called proboscis. It's a very small hairs kind of things, and will not feel much pain. So if you can fabricate a nanostructure like that, we can even have a painless injection. So this is how we get inspired from the nature, and that will be motivating us to build several devices in case of biosensors. So I would like to. So anybody have any doubt, you can ask.
Hello, ma'am. Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, this is Sandeep. There are some queries. I am going to post it now.
Okay.
I posted it, ma'am.
Could you please
Explain the advantage.
sir has asked? Huh?
Yes. Okay.
Could you? Yeah, increase in surface to volume ratio. Yeah. So this thing that I have said, right, I have shown you that a mechanism, right? So the surface, it is gas sensing phenomenon. The mechanism is actually the surface reaction that is happening. Not just surface reaction, interface also it is happening. But the surface reaction is also contributing towards the gas sensing. So we have to and all, if we have got lot of surface reaction sites, definitely the rate of reaction will increase. So same concept is here only. When we are reducing the surface when we are increasing the surface to volume, that is when we are breaking a material very small. So the surface area is when we are taking it, actually it's surface. The surface that it can contact with the sensing elements, it is small, it is getting increased. So in this kind of reactions, where surface reactions is also contributing towards the sensor phenomenon, this kind of things is actually an added advantage when we are increasing the surface to volume ratio. Is there any method to provide gases input in a simulation tool for this gas sensor simulation? So this is actually in TCAD and simulate an LED or something like that. You can give the light as input in the simulation with certain package. But gas as an input, we cannot directly give, as far as my understanding. We cannot directly give the gas as input, but we have modeling, find out the surface potential using that modeling. Then, with the help of modeling, we will be finding out some values. That values we can given to the TCAD simulator. So gas assess as such, we just not possible in TCAD tools, but I think in console we can do similar. But even then, we will not get that much good result. We have to do some modeling that surface potential in the presence of gas and all, then only we'll be able to do the simulation modeling for gas sensing. But the device simulation in all that possible. But gases as such, we have to do some analytical modeling. What is the thickness of palladium used? Whether the thickness plays any role in reversibility of sensing? Okay. I have palladium metal thickness is 18 nanometer. So if we want to say, I have played with the zinc oxide thin film thickness. Actually, if we want to know that whether this palladium, either we have to do simulation, but we cannot trust simulation completely. We have to go for fabrication and find out when we are decreasing this Schottky method, how our gas sensing characterization is changing. Any other?
Yes, ma'am.
Kindly.
How to plan device dimensions of nano sensors?
Yeah, that is what I said. Device time. Yeah, that is why we are using the simulation and modeling. Like plan device dimensions. First, we said when we are starting research, we'll read lot of literature. Then we will have some idea, like very vague idea about what can be the possible dimension. Then we'll play with our TCAD simulator. That is the only option. We can how to finalize the device dimension. We cannot say that I am going for this 200 nanometer, 100 nanometer. So that is through simulation. If you have all the facilities available with you in your lab, like you can play with it, fabricate different kind of things and anything you can do. But what the procedure is like, we'll go for simulation of our device. We'll vary the dimensions and we'll see the characteristics, how it is changing, which one is better for us, for our application, which one suits us. Then we'll go for fabrication of that particular device. That is actually the usual procedure.
Okay, ma'am. Another one from Sai Krishna. Kindly shed light on implementation of machine learning in result prediction model optimization.
Yeah, this is what everything for this device field. What you need is you need to have a lot of data. That is the thing. If you want to do some deep learning or machine learning techniques, you need to have that much bunch of data with you. So you can get it either from TCAD simulation or experimentation. In what extent, I don't know if it's possible. But after getting the data, there are machine learning algorithms available. You can create, you can optimize the algorithms by yourself. Then you can train that model using this data that is available with you. Then after training, then we have now a model with trained one. Then you will be able to predict the result. So it is you will have a good idea about that machine learning algorithms and optimization and those kind of things. You'll get better with them. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Can FET-based sensor
morning,
be
ma'am.
simulated in TCAD?
Pardon?
Can FET-based sensor be simulated in TCAD?
FTT. Yeah, sure. FTT can be simulated in TCAD. But the sensor, that part when it comes, it depends. Like just I said, gas sensor, we cannot give 100 ppm hydrogen as such in a Silvaco, but I don't know, means whether some other tools support how, but that thing we have to do some money. But anyway, the simulation is possible.
And one more query
Good
from
morning, ma'am.
Rasha. Ma'am, you have shown device characteristics at room temperature and more than room temperature. Why not less temperature than room temperature?
Yeah, the only reason for that is I don't have the facility to reduce the temperature below it. If I have the facility, I could have done for that also.
And one more question. Is there any TCAD tool that has model for sputtering process?
Yeah, it is like a Silvaco, we have Adina. There is in Visual TCAD, I don't have much idea about Visual TCAD. They have any process related, I don't know. But in Silvaco TCAD, we have Adina as well as Atlas. So in Atlas, we will do all this device simulation and get the characteristic. Whereas Adina is for this process simulation. Like you can do your diffusion or deposition. There are different. So in Silvaco Adina, it is possible, like sputtering, deposition. The sputtering as such, sputtering is anyway deposition technique, deposition, etching, everything is possible in Silvaco Adina.
How are the FETs
Ma'am, I
made
have a doubt,
highly?
ma'am.
Okay, carry on. Somebody are asking.
Yeah, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yeah, ma'am. If the thickness of, in case of hydrogen sensing, if the thickness of palladium is large, might be in some tens of nano. To go into the volume of the palladium, and then it will become difficult to dissolve this hydrogen when the gas is off, which will affect the reversibility of the sensor.
Yeah, sure, it will affect. Yeah, it will affect. The palladium actually there is some disadvantage of palladium in that sense because some blistering will happen when lot of hydrogen will come over it. But it's not like after a very long sensing and long, maybe some blistering can happen. Palladium can form alloy with this palladium hydrate can form. So that may affect our device sensing. So we can go for alloying. We can experiment with different kinds of material, different alloys in connection with palladium to reduce this effect. So as far as I have concerned, means I didn't observe that thing, but it is. I mean, means the researchers have reported it. It is a possibility. that palladium blistering and that kind of thing. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Next query is, how are the FETs made highly specific, and is there a tool which helps us control and monitor the specificity of the device?
About the FET, yeah, FET made highly specific in the sense like it depends upon the application. When I said about the biosensor, I have said that is that bio recognition, that element, that plays a very important role. So you have seen that antigen antibody, right? It is like a lock and key mechanism that is happening. It is actually a biological reaction. So we are functionalizing our sensor with that antibody by ourselves. And when this antigen comes, only that particular molecule will get binded over this and this minded over this antibody. So in that way, how we are making the transistor-based biosensor very specific. So how to find out that, how we can mobilize that surface, how to find out the material, that is very important here.
Is there a tool which helps us control and monitor the specificity of the device?
Control and monitor the specificity of the device means, yeah, we have to measure it in different, like for example, if in the hydrogen, we have to model for like what are the surface potential, all the calculations, some only find out some values. Then we apply that voltage to the gate voltage, and in the presence of some other gas also, we have to find out that. Then see the current voltage characteristics in the device, and like that way we can go for like that.
Ma'am, one more query just posted.
Hmm.
Just posted in chat box.
Yeah. Okay. Ma'am, the electrical characterization of yeah, whatever I have shown today, it is completely experimental only. I haven't shown any simulator result, only in that final machine learning part only. It is going to be.
I hope that's all.
I think Y is ideality factor for far from its ideal value. So I have explained you about that, like what Schottky diode, right? Schottky diode principle. So that is why this kind of thing, yeah, this kind of doubts will come into your mind. So whenever we are planning to fabricate something, that complete mechanism should be very clear to us. So that Schottky diode, you have seen the thermionic emission I have explained, when the barrier height is reducing or when we are forward biasing it, actually the electron is jumping over the barrier. That is called thermionic emission. So that is the conventional mechanism that we are following. And the diode equation, everything, it is being found out that the ideality factor, that constant, is based on that assumption. That is, it is completely thermionic emission. But in ideal case, or in practical case, when you are fabricating a device, it is not just the ideality factor that is coming to play there. There are tunneling, quantum mechanical tunneling can be happen in a, like barrier homogeneities can happen because of the fabrication. So several other factors will comes there. So we can, if it is pure thermionic emission, we can say that ideality factor is 1, and it will not happen in a fabricated case. In a practical case, it is very rare that we'll get exactly 1. It will be different. Swab specimens using FET-based biosensor will be effective in treatment of COVID. Means I have shown you the results by published by a team only. So I don't think that they have made it practical. They are in the research. Maybe they are the research level. They have fabricated one thing and they are claiming that it will. So it is not being started using. I don't think so. The answer is maybe we have to. Yeah, according to the research, yeah, we can say that it is working. Yeah, the just antigen antibody reaction is happening. The channel conductance is changing, and we are so it is working. So practically, it's, somewhere it is working for the detecting COVID. Exactly, I don't know, but.
Hello.
Sorry.
Ma'am, you were saying that for that electrical characterization at different temperatures, you have used only experimental results are presented. In
Yeah,
case
yeah.
if it is experimental, then what is the setup you have used for subjecting the sensor to different temperature? Because you are talking about the sensor where you are having the sensing material as well as substrate. So when you put the whole sensor in that higher temperature, maybe in the heater box or kind of thing, then it will the substrate changes in temperature. The substrate quality will also changes. That is, its electrical characterization will also change. It is not only the sensor. So will you consider the whole thing as a thing, or what kind of setup you are making use of it?
Yeah, it is like
Kind of.
I've shown you. I've shown you the picture of DC prop station, right? That is. So I have used that setup. There we have the facility to increase and decrease the temperature. So different like from room temperature to till 200 or 250 degrees Celsius, we can change the temperature and can see the current voltage characterization there. The chamber temperature, that temperature will be increased. There is setup for that. So I have just used that to change the temperature.